Wells only and his guests are not responsible for any losses you may accrue for having weekends. Where the haters at? Y'all bitches still ain't showed up. And now, right, we got Hex, flawless uptime. People thought this was a joke. Now they're mad at the chart.
This is Wales only. Glad you guys can make it out. I'm making some claims that are pretty outlandish, but I can back them up. Boom. End of story. There is no other crypto out there, so don't get it twisted. If you don't understand where you're parking your money, you're gonna pay the consequences for that, and that's just how the cookie crumbles. Boom. We're obliterating everybody, literally. There is nobody else that comes close to what Hex has done. Boom. Oh, it's about to get funky. Funkier than you could have ever imagined. You know, Richard Hart is a boss. Hex is literally the best thing on the planet. It's simple mathematics. Right? The reality is that I want to be rich as fuck. There's only one way to be rich as fuck. That's by sitting on your ass the longest. Yep. That's it. Yep. That's the secret. The God well told you. Richard done told you. I done told you. Kareem done told you. Maddie done told you. Everybody done told you. Everybody done told you. These motherfuckers still acting like they don't know. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
100% safe. There's plenty of games left.
Valiant done told you. Yo, everybody said it. I mean, hey, you know what it is, man? Everybody done told you. Y'all's deep. Everybody. My God. Ex-Asians, bro. Everybody. Australians, man. Everybody gets me. Yo, when is it told you? Dollar Club told you. Everybody done told you. It's crazy. Happy Thursday to all, and to all a happy day. Hope everybody's doing all right so far today. And if your day is coming to a close, hope it was a good one. Welcome to the latest installment of Stuff the Internet Wants You to Know. Got a good deck laid out today. You know, just remember, guys, these videos are just contextual with respect to stuff that's going on out there that basically they don't want you to know. And that's why it's important to keep an open mind, understand that there is no truth, right? There's really just what you come across and what you figure out. Because if we are to go by definition, we're a long ways away from that. So let's just get into it, because it's going to be a good one today. Oh, yeah. So let's get it started. Yeah, this first one was crazy. Let me know if you guys can hear the sound.
Ryan is a rail enthusiast with a difference. He travels the country on his handmade minecart. The luxury transport has a simple petrol motor and a drinks cooler for a seat. He's riding on the San Diego and Arizona Eastern Railway, which was used between 1919 and 2008. It was originally 148 miles long, and some of the track is still used in Mexico today. Ryan's travels have taken him across the Californian desert and even across the border into Mexico. finding all sorts of abandoned stuff on the way. How far can he go?
Crazy
Ryan
stuff,
is a
right?
rail enthusiast with a difference. He travels the country on his handmade minecart.
Hold on, guys. Not sure why this isn't reacting. There we go. All right, so that was pretty cool. Um, that looks super fun. Yeah. Uh, now we get back. Now we get down to business. This is just funny, but I'll have a lot to say after it's done.
The entire journalism industry is basically in a free fall. Today, the Los Angeles Times laid off 115 employees. They wiped out their entire DC bureau in an election year. They laid off pretty much all of their sports teams. They killed their entire tech and business section. They laid off breaking news writers, social media editors. The list goes on. But what's really dark is this is just the latest in months and months and months of layoffs in the media industry. In fact, tens of thousands of journalists have been laid off in the past year. Major media companies like BuzzFeed News have completely shuttered their news operations. Time Magazine also just laid off a ton of people, and Sports Illustrated basically shut down last week. Pretty much the entire digital media ecosystem that myself and a lot of other millennial journalists came up in has been completely hollowed out. And it's not just digital media sites. Local news has been obliterated. The newspaper industry is cratering. Radio is essentially dead aside from NPR, which has been gutted. Meanwhile, hundreds of workers at Condé Nast, the parent company of pretty much every major magazine from GQ to Vogue to The New Yorker to Vanity Fair, are on strike because they're also facing impending layoffs. Even mainstream national media outlets owned by billionaires like the Washington Post, where I work, and The Atlantic, where I used to work, have done layoffs. If you're a young journalist today, there's almost no on-ramp to traditional journalism. Even if you do get a job, journalists' salaries have been stagnant and even declined. And by the way, we don't make that much to begin with. I don't think people understand how bad the world would be without journalists.
Now, imagine being that fucking clueless in the 21st century. You know, the media landscape is now everybody that's on social media. It is not the billionaires that own these media outlets. And then the interesting thing is that even the social media sites, even though they're censored, they only be censored but so much, because then people just go elsewhere. And then what data are you gathering? None. So this is why it's important for people to understand that it's not about sides. It's not about conservative or liberal. It's about what's right. And if you don't have a moral compass, you're going to look and sound like a dumb fuck like this chick does. Because journalism is exactly where everything goes wrong for society. And it's exactly where it's always been going wrong for society. Because people buy into the narratives that these cocksuckers sell as if they're true. And as we've all learned, none of them are.
The entire journalism industry is.
So let's keep it moving.
Remember all the great fires? 1888, 1889, 1890, 1891, 1892, 1893. All the world fairs, which were all resets, those were all fires too. Just so happened everything caught on fire. A cow kicked over a lantern. And somehow everything caught on fire. Stone and granite caught on fire. Stone and granite caught on fire. I'm going to say that one more time. So then you start to look at the 1850s to like 1900s and go, well, then how much of that is scripted? Seems like a lot of scripting is going on. Well, in 1851, we're going to have a great fire. 1852, we're going to have a great fire. 1853 we'll have a flood. 1854 we'll have a hurricane. And you see it? That's the thing. The more I would dive into the past, into these books, the more I saw the exact same thing on repeat. So then it comes down to, if the people don't realize that the same thing is on repeat, then guess what? They keep doing the same exact thing to the people. They destroyed history 100%. They told you Oregon Trail and the whole, we're riding around on Oregon Trail. Meanwhile, they're getting rid of all the old world buildings. They're getting rid of all these beauties, all these statues, all that, so that they can now tell another story.
So as the story continues, it's important to understand that you're the actual determinant of where it finishes, because it's not the 1800s anymore. This is in France. Them boys out there are done playing games, apparently. So, be interesting to see how long it takes America to catch up to the reality of what's coming for them. That being no food, no protection, no nothing. Just fuck you. 'Cause that's pretty much what everybody else has been experiencing. And that's why this stuff is all happening now, because this is all coming to a head. That is all. More French. Just trying to avoid copyright strike, folks. Hilarious stuff. I mean, this is what it's going to have to come down to. So, because you guys got to realize this is just the beginning. This is in Boston, the airport, Logan Airport. Now on to Chicago. We got 5 minutes of somebody recording here, and it just so happens that this guy is an actual journalist. So let's tune in.
So just to give you guys an update on why I'm here, the flight got canceled in Chicago. I was actually flying home to see my girls. So I got to stay here a night. So I figure what better thing to do than come and show you what's happening, give you an update. And surprise, surprise, it's worse. There's more people here than there were before. That entire curtain all the way back for 100 yards is full, and they're actually coming out to here as well. And every single day, more and more and more bus loads. And there are hundreds of locations around the area here that are full every single day. They're getting more full. The weather's getting worse, and there's no end in sight because the Democrats are inviting more of this. What's up, bro? My boy again.
Hey,
Who said?
this is the first guy who put me on the film the first time.
Yep, I put you on the film because he said my mom should swallow me. And you get to be on film because you're in public. Venezuela, they've actually, so this whole thing, this whole black curtain full of illegals all the way down, the entire bus terminal is taken over. Who said no pictures? You're in America. This whole bus terminal has been taken over by illegals because they've been invited in by Joe Biden. But now they don't even have room behind here. They have hundreds behind this black curtain. Now they're having to put the beds out here so that American citizens can't even sit out here anymore. You got more beds coming here. So American citizens are standing out in the freezing cold out here because they don't want to come in here. And on February 2nd, this entire thing is getting taken over where media is not going to be able to come in. Citizens aren't going to be able to come in. It's only illegal aliens that are going to be allowed to be in here. This is Joe Biden's America. This is the Democrats' America. Please stay away from curtain. Please stay away. Don't touch. Private. It's private here, guys. Private here. So if I go in there, I'm breaking the law. But if you come in illegally into our country, that's fine. Venezuela.
Venezuela no good. Más Nicolás Maduro.
Sí.
No good.
No good.
Nicolás Maduro no good. Hace 9 años en Venezuela era militar.
Okay, militar.
Sí.
Wow. Military from Venezuela.
Así.
There he is.
That's a lot of people in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could kind of see through the sheet.
Hundreds. It's
There's
hundreds.
a lot of people in there. For the most part, I just think that, you can't cross over any border in any other country but ours.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen, it's a lot of military age men
Yeah.
coming from other countries, and that's concerning.
Yeah.
But I know people want to have a better life, and America's the land of golden opportunity. But I think there has to be just a legal and a fair way to get here. Just can't handle it.
I know, we
Our
can't
country
handle it.
can't handle that many. I don't want to say freeloaders, but that many people getting things for free and not putting in the work and doing their part.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
hopefully they, I don't know. We'll see how it all works out in the next administration. So.
Yeah. Any preference on who wins?
No, I don't really talk politics, but I'd say I'm a little bit of a moderate.
Yeah.
Go both ways on different subjects, but I do know one important thing is we've got to tighten our borders. I don't
Yeah.
want to say shut them, but we've got to tighten them.
Yeah. Get control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, God bless you.
It's flooding in.
Yeah.
Yep.
I appreciate you
Have a
taking the
good
time.
one.
You too. So you can't really see back there, but all of those, there's just cot after cot after cot. This entire thing, all the way down. All cots. And the NGOs that are running them. Just love these. I love the number of signs. Stay away from the curtains. Look at this. Look at the amount of signs. It'd be nice if we had that on our border. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy, guys. There you go. If you guys voted for Joe Biden, this is what you got. If you vote for him again, you're getting more of it. It's the death of our country. So sick of it, guys. I'm so sick of it. That's why. We have to reelect President Trump. It doesn't matter what lie they make up about him. It doesn't matter what next indictment, fraud indictment they bring up. It doesn't matter what fraud impeachment. It doesn't matter what Russia hoax they bring up again. It's all lies, and they know it because they know that if President Trump's back in there, they're out. Not just the illegals here, but the people that are aiding and abetting the destruction of our country.
So you have to understand that this is all intentional, and this is happening no matter where you look. Literally. Now, what do you think the end result is going to be in the United States when we already see what's happening everywhere else? I mean, 1 + 1 is 2. So, as you saw that female talking, even she is still experiencing cognitive dissonance because she's talking about tightening up the borders. No. We need to close the motherfuckers until shit gets rectified. Gotta be closed. Period. It's not really an option at this point because people think it's a fucking wide open gate, and it's exactly what it's been looking like. But at the end of the day, until the people, i.e. us, are aware and in charge, we're heading straight to chaos. Because there's going to be ping pong until then. Now let's listen to this shit.
Counting Texas, we have 15
governors in 15 states from the United States that are deploying personnel to secure the border. Altogether, if you add in the other states that are supporting this mission, 25 governors in 25 states, half of the states of the United States of America are banding together to step up and secure a border that President Biden has abandoned. Altogether, counting.
Now, as you guys can see, the states in red are the states that are interested in protecting their border, the border, the country. The states that are tan are apparently not that interested in that yet. But here's the catch. For those people like us that live in those states in tan that are about freedom and whatnot, the last thing you should ever consider doing is leaving, except for maybe California and Illinois. Maybe those states are too far gone. I don't live there, so I don't really know in good detail what it looks like on the ground. But from afar, it looks like those are the two states you got to leave. Even Washington is probably in a better position than them because the only shithole there is Seattle, not like the entire state like California. Right? So these are things you have to keep in mind. There is nowhere to run to. You have to stand and fight. Otherwise, you've just acquiesced and said, yeah, you got it. So just because you're in a tan state doesn't mean anything. You stand your ground because that's what we have to do. There is nowhere to run to. Check this out. This is in New York.
He went out of town for 3 weeks and came back to a bill from the water company.
I call them up and say, well, what's going on? I said, we were talking about turning off the water. And they said, well, we can't. Somebody's living in the house. So I thought for sure there must be some mistake.
But when he showed up to the house, what he found shocked him. There were cars in the driveway and people inside.
I went and banged on the door. And a couple came and opened the door. And I said, no, we're living here. We have a lease.
John learned that in New York State, you cannot legally lock a squatter out of your home or turn off utilities. And once a squatter is there for 30 days, they are classified as a tenant, whether you want them there or not. He went out of town for 3 weeks and came back to a bill from the water company.
I call them up and say, well, what's going on? I said, we were talking about turning off the water. And they said, well, we can't. Somebody's living in the house. So I thought for sure there must be some mistake.
But when he showed up to the house, what he found shocked him. There were cars in the driveway and people inside.
I went and banged on the door. And a couple came and opened the door. And I said, no, we're living here. We have a lease.
John learned that in New York State, you cannot legally lock a squatter out of your home or turn off utilities. And once a squatter is there for 30 days, they are classified as a tenant, whether you want them there or not. He went out of town for 3 weeks and came back to a bill from the water company.
Now, I let that play twice because it makes no damn sense. This man went on vacation, came back to no home, just because. Y'all need to think about that. And this is also happening. The war is not just spiritual any longer. It is also becoming physical. And I don't really know what it's going to take for people to wake up and realize what's going on. Maybe we'll all be walking in the train cars or some shit. I don't fucking know, but it's up to us to stop it. And it doesn't take every single individual. And these dumbasses are not dying.
Subscribe for more. This guy just...
And these dumbasses are sadly not dying fast enough. And what fell out of the plane was nothing. a landing tire, the wheels from the plane, one of them just fell off. Like, this is really happening. They're going to find ways to ground people and have them not travel one way or the other, basically. So let's watch this.
Destroyed evolution. Watch this.
Evolution is based on 4 major ideas. None of them have ever been observed. Number 1, that life comes from non-life. We have not one single example of life coming from non-life. Number 2, that all the life forms that we have today came from single-cell life forms. Many people do not know that while we do have single-cell life forms that we call bacteria, we have no 2-cell life forms, we don't have 3-cell life forms, we don't have 4-cell life forms, we don't even have 5-cell life forms. That is, we go from single-cell bacteria to complex life forms. So there's no evidence that all life comes from single-cell life forms. The third postulate of evolution is that time and chance drive evolution forward, of course, and time works against evolution. The chance of one simple 100-unit protein coming together by accident is a very big number. Time and chance make evolution absolutely impossible.
Come on, if you believe creation points to a creator and you believe in God, type amen in the comments and follow.
All right, I'm not a holy roller and all that, but just sticking to the facts. Now back to reality.
You testified a moment ago to Senator Butler that every child gets a Know Your Rights presentation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that before or after you release them to labor traffickers?
Senator, every child that comes into our care gets a Know Your Rights presentation, as well as...
Have you read these New York Times reports, these stories, the series of stories the New York Times has done on the children who are in your care? Have you read them?
Yes, I have.
Have you read that children are scrubbing dishes, they are operating heavy machinery, they are delivering meals, they are harvesting coffee, they are working construction, they are working as housekeepers, they are working overnight shifts at plants where they are not paid, they are not going to school, they are not cared for, they are not giving meals, almost all of it illegally. Are you aware of that? That's a yes or no.
Yes.
Do the Know Your Rights presentation help them in those situations?
Senator, ORR...
That's a yes or no, I think. Do you really think that you're helping these children by releasing them to labor traffickers and, yes, sex traffickers? 85,000 children whom you have no contact with, and your answer is, we gave them a presentation before we turned them over to these people who are exploiting them on a scale not seen in this country for 100 years, a century.
I'm telling you, the allegation that my client has anything to do with child exploitation or rapey.xu is false and defamatory, and I am advising you in the strongest possible terms not to publish such a thing.
On May 11, 2023, the Department of Justice issued a press release regarding 4 men who were sentenced for engaging in a child exploitation enterprise. The child exploitation enterprise being rapey.su, an open web platform operated by the late convicted felon Nathan Larson. Members of this website would share media of pedophilia, child rape, and even tried to arrange in-person meetups. In 2023, cybersecurity professional Ryan Montgomery went public and discussed how he obtained user data from Nathan Larson's network. The data obtained by Montgomery revealed over 7,000 email addresses of individuals who became members of rapey.su. It's important to note that the application process contained questions such as, if a man wants to rape his 3-year-old daughter up every hole while she's crying and screaming, do you have a problem with that? To be clear, the only way for these thousands of users to have their email show up in the database, they or someone who breached their email account had to answer this question. The email address hero121@mail.com connected to the username Jackie222. It is worth noting that when investigating email addresses, they often connect to multiple individuals. However, this email address repeatedly linked back to the one name. More than 10 identity verification services strongly suggest that this email is only associated with one possible name. BlackRock Managing Director Abigail Gold Geller. To further corroborate our research, we decided to work with a private investigator to see if they would come up with a different conclusion. Using DelvePoint, a program that licensed private investigators use for their investigations, our private investigator obtained this comprehensive report, which contains a wealth of information regarding an Abigail S. Gold, which appears corroborated by these other background checks, including the fact that hero121@mail.com was allegedly an email of Abigail Gold. This private investigator was even able to take it a step further using DelvePoint, showing the addresses the email was used at. From these findings, it shows hero121@mail.com was used 2 separate times by a person named Abigail Gold, as well as Gold Abigail, at a property she owns in New York City, lending more credibility that this could be Abigail's email and she was the one using it. Unfortunately, the report does not indicate when she used this email and for what purpose. What all 11 of these background checks strongly suggest is hero121@mail.com does in fact belong to an Abigail Gold Geller.
I have this tip that is claiming that your email is associated with this rapey website, and I'm just trying to figure out like what if this is bogus tip or.
Can I give you a call right back? Call you right back.
Okay.
Can I call you right back?
Yeah, sure.
Abigail Geller's lawyer, Jack Bauman, founder and managing partner of JFB Legal, had this to say regarding the allegations.
It's hero121@mail.com.
Okay, that is not her email address. It has never been her email address. The allegation that that is any way associated with her is absolutely false. I'm telling you, the allegation that my client has anything to do with child exploitation or rapey.xu is false and defamatory, and I am advising you in the strongest possible terms not to publish such a thing.
Help me out here. How can you say that's clearly not her email address, though? How do you know that? You just found out what the email address is, right?
You could go register for that email address today on mail.com. It is not her email address.
And even more concerning, who signed up for this very specific email address on this obscure email service provider following the end of the phone call on the morning of September 28th, 2023, before Bauman sent the letter to us that same evening? Bauman himself admitted that you can go on today and sign up for that email address. Our team has since reached out to the Department of Justice's Eastern District in Virginia, the same office that sentenced the 4 men for engaging in the child exploitation enterprise, rapey.su. We provided both the username Jackie222 and the email hero121@mail.com to better assist their ongoing investigation.
Now that shit is crazy. It's funny how there's no ice on this map. Another map, no ice. All the areas that are being shown that is on the outer edge is what Antarctica is supposed to be. And this map is also probably 500 plus years old. And of course, the music is muted so I don't get hit with that copyright. Trying to keep it clean, homies. Trying to keep it clean. Yeah, you know what I think of the most when I see these maps is, you know, are these images that are drawn in these areas, you know, like that dude right there? Or like, is that a real person? Are those real entities? Like, are those real? You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Keep an open mind, folks. Remember that time this little girl figured out all the U.S. presidents were related? I remember when I heard this. And, you know, it was more mind-blowing because Barack is even included in this batch. You know, it don't make no sense. Let's watch.
Thomas Jefferson, William Howard Taft, and President Barack Obama. One young girl traced them all back to one common ancestor.
They're all cousins and all grandsons of John Lackland.
It's the first family tree of its kind. Pouring through more than 500,000 names for months, 12-year-old Bridge Ann d'Avignon discovered that all the U.S. presidents, except Martin Van Buren, are related to the former King of England, John Lackland Plantagenet, signer of the Magna Carta in 1215.
Mildred Reed is his first great-grandmother on George Washington. And on Obama, Mildred Reed is the 10th great-grandmother.
It started as an assignment to research her own lineage, tracing it back to roots in France. But Bridge Ann wanted to branch out.
Well, I think we just all go back somewhere. It's just a matter of proving it.
She started with George Washington, but unlike other professional genealogists that only looked at the male family lines, Bridge Ann was able to link the presidents together using both male and female ancestry. Before this, historians had only been able to link 22 family trees.
She kind of created a triumph of women's studies here.
Bridge Ann also figured out she's an 18th cousin of President Obama, something she hopes to be able to share with him in person.
I've written a letter to Obama, but I just gotten standard reply. I hope to meet the president and explain it to him.
In Paso Robles, Adam Rakusin, your Central Coast News.
Well, hope that girl understands what's going on nowadays. 'Cause that was a while ago. I think that's at least 10 years old, if not a little younger. Something crazy. I don't know. Let's keep watching.
One of my clients, one of my patients, is a producer in Hollywood.
Kriegte vor 2 Jahren einen Auftrag von Disney.
2 years ago, he received a task from Disney.
Alle alten Disney-Movies zu überarbeiten.
To go over and edit all the old Disney movies.
In den Himmel diese Streifen einzubauen.
To put into the scenes of the sky these stripes.
So, when people see a Disney-Movie
also wenn dann die Leute einen Disney-Film schauen heutzutage.
Und sagen, weil Klinghardt, du sagst Klinghardt, dass diese Streifenbildung erst in den letzten Jahren so schlimm geworden ist.
And then for example, people say today, well, Klinghardt, you're talking about these stripes being formed on the sky today, only as of late.
Dann sagen sie, hier ist ein Film von 1954, guck dir den Himmel an.
Then they will say,
der hat die gleichen Streifen drin.
Look at this movie here from 1954. There are the same stripes at the sky.
Die Streifen sind ein natürliches Phänomen.
That then convinced people that the stripes are a natural phenomenon.
Mein Patient hatte für $60 Millionen bekommen.
My patient received for this job $60 million.
Now ask yourself, as a normal Joe, how do you say no to that? Right?
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed.
How do you say no to that? I mean, these are the things you guys got to think about and try to understand. And this is how you know money is a problem. It's not really a solution like we're taught. Like, the bigger issue at hand is really the way society functions and the way we've been educated about what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's good, what's bad, all these things. I mean, I'm about to show you guys another video, and I'll read the caption. Bill Gates fully admitted he wanted to reduce the world's population by using vaccines. These are his own words that others in the audience of the TED Talk heard as well. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware, but this actually happened. And this is not the only time the man is on record stating that this is his intended goal. So if you know any Bill Gates fans, understand that those are the biggest NPCs of all. Let's watch.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Well, common sense would tell you if you have a man standing in front of you saying he's going to reduce the world's population by 10 or 15% using vaccines, what does that mean to you? It means somebody's going to die because you put a vaccine in them. It doesn't mean you're going to save people. That's pretty much common sense in my brain. But yet I saw him say it. He said it. And here we are. I don't know. I'm just, here we are. I'm now an anti-vaxxer. I wasn't before.
And that's why that man's going to live into old age, whereas others have already quit.
I'm going to show you what happens when you sleep. And there's a tiny little gland in the base of the brain called the pineal gland. Pineal gland releases 4 hormones every night. And in the winter, they're released between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. We've got summertime at the moment. It's between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. What are these hormones? One is serotonin, that's your mood hormone. Melatonin is called the fix and rejuvenate nighttime hormone. Melatonin is the one that's responsible for the increase in healing, rest, rejuvenation in those hours. Another hormone is arginine vasotocin. And arginine vasotocin is a hormone that puts us into a deep sleep. And arginine vasotocin is our natural painkiller. But there's a side effect. Using the natural painkiller, which the body will automatically do if there's pain of any type in the body, there will be a waste from it. The next night when you go to bed, if that waste hasn't been eliminated, then the pineal gland won't release another dose of arginine vasotocin. But if you exercise in the day, if you do that high intensity interval training in the day, you will always get a perspiration built happening, and that's releasing the waste. The other hormone is epithalamin, and epithalamin is a hormone that increases learning capacity. Epithalamin also slows down aging. I'm going to show you what happens when
So much that we do not know. Let's continue. Open your eyes. Let's see what else they have in store for those Europeans.
Last week, the European Parliament and the Council for the European Union reached a final agreement on a law to create the European Digital ID, or EID, the EU's first fully digital identification system. Now, this law will provide Europeans with a digital wallet containing digital versions of their ID cards, their driver's licenses, their academic certificates, medical records, bank account information, and so on. The next major step in the EU will be to create a digital EU euro and a central bank digital currency, which is currently being developed by the European Central Bank. Now, I've been warning about digital ID for some time, and it wasn't so long ago that, like many of these issues which turn out to be correct, it was considered to be nothing but a conspiracy theory. Closer to home, the Labor government will soon introduce an Australian version of the digital ID legislation, and consultation on that bill has recently closed. And you can see how it's going to happen. Then we'll get a digital currency, and once those steps are in place, a digital snare trap will have been created. And we saw how that worked a couple of years ago with the financial cancellation of the Canadian truckers when they were protesting COVID lockdowns and freedoms. The advancement of technology is inevitable, but this push towards a digital ID future is another step towards a Chinese Communist Party-style social credit system, which will force you to support the current thing at the risk of total cancellation. We must reject a digital ID future, and time is running out for people in this place to understand that they are playing with fire.
Yeah, so for all you crypto bros moving to Portugal and all them places that you think you're escaping something, you're not. Let's continue.
And so my concern was, and by the way, I raised this concern when in the spring of 2019, Moderna filed 4 patent applications, which had been previously rejected. And in those patent applications, they made reference to an accidental or intentional release of a respiratory pathogen. This was in April of 2019. This is before the China virus, right? And you sit back and ask yourself the question, why would a company that has never made a commercial product, ever, why would a company that has never had any expertise in respiratory pathogens amend patent filings that had been rejected to include the language accidental or intentional release of respiratory pathogen if somebody wasn't preparing to release a respiratory pathogen? So the point is, there was no surprise. The only thing I can say after October of 2019, when we had Event 201, and after the middle of September 2019, when the World Health Organization said that they were going to conduct a worldwide exercise with an accidental or intentional release of a lethal respiratory pathogen, which is what they said, the only surprise I had was how audacious it was that the criminals were actually telling the public that they were going to do it, and nobody in the public cared.
Yep. Let's continue.
In order to provide contrast, and then I'm just washing it with ethyl alcohol. And once this is done, we're going to go ahead and place it under the microscope.
And that's to get the contrast, so it's just more easily viewable under the microscope, right?
Exactly. Again, kind of standard staining techniques, but usually used for microbiology. But we're just using it for these tissue samples here. Now I'm going to flatten this out with another slide because it's a little too tall. It's pretty, chunky here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to kind of flatten it out a little bit. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go ahead and place this under the microscope in real time. Again, because the reason I'm doing this is I don't want anybody to think that any of this is faked or anything like that.
Right, doing the whole thing live. My God.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Oof.
You get that graphic right there.
No, but look, this is what's in people's body. This is what's being removed from people's damaged hearts, and you can see why. I mean, my God. For the radio viewers, so I don't even know how to describe it. You got to just see the image.
Go back to the microscope image, if you would, please. Yeah. Help describe this for the radio viewers, but we're going to start zooming in on this, and we're going to get a lot more contrast and information. I have to refocus as we move. But what I want you to notice about this, and again, this is coming out of people who were formerly alive. People are walking around with these things growing inside their arteries and blood vessels. Okay, these are massive. These are not the size of just one protein. These are like billions of proteins, and these are strands. In fact, I want to show you something. Let me zoom out. I want to show you something that's just going to blow your mind. If I grab this with the forceps here, you can see that on screen, and I start to pull. I want to show you how much I can pull and how strong these are before this breaks.
Oh, wow.
You see how they are fibrous and they are strong. They're like rubber bands.
Right, and it looks like it has the consistency of, and I hate to even put it this, but it looks like something like raw calamari. I mean, it looks like some sort of rubbery seafood.
Yep.
But not.
Yep, that's what I've always thought of when I seen those things as calamari. Nasty. Let's continue.
Earth theory. With this endorsement, the argument.
Now with this one, you must pay attention closely to what is being said.
The argument, for all practical purposes, came to an end when the Church of England was established by law during the 16th century. They embraced many radical scientific notions prevalent at the time, including Copernicus' round Earth theory. With this endorsement, the theory found its way into the schools, which were then largely controlled by the Church. It has remained there to this day, and many children have accepted it without question. The argument, for all practical purposes, came to an end when the Church of England was established by law during the 16th century. They embraced many radical scientific notions prevalent at the time, including Copernicus' round Earth theory. With this endorsement, the theory found its way into the schools, which were then largely controlled by the church. It has remained there to this day, and many children have accepted it without question. The argument for all practice.
So you just listened 2 times to a gentleman telling you that the earth is flat. Hope you caught that.
If you're killing 50,000 of your citizens and the government is doing that through the MAID program, and a lot of them are not actually terminally ill, they're just sad, and the government is encouraging them to submit to being killed by the government, and then we'll release the recent statistics. Like, what is that? What is that? Yeah, it's genocide. That's exactly what it is. It's killing large groups of people. And who are those people? We don't know, because your government hasn't released the stat. What percentage of those were born in Canada? I bet right around 100%. So if you're a government, you have the duty to your citizens, people who are from here, people whose ancestors built the place, not exclusively to them, but primarily to them, to your citizens. Like, why else do you exist except to serve your citizens? And if you're targeting your citizens, how many people who arrived in Canada in the last 10 years have opted into the MAID program? I don't know the answer. I bet around 0. It's all people who are from here. And now the government brags, oh, we're saving money because they died. That's the darkest thing I can imagine. I bet there's zero conversation about that in this country because I know this country and I know what it's like. It's too horrible. No one wants to talk about it. You should talk about it. But more than anything, you should internalize the message of that, which is they hate me. They hate me to the point they're willing to kill me, which they are. And the third thing is, notice the erosion of your most basic civil liberties, not the ones granted to you by the crown, but the ones granted to you by God. And those would include the freedom of speech, which is inalienable. It cannot be taken from you no matter who is in Ottawa. Your rights remain the same because you were born with them, because you were not a slave, you're a human being. And you have inherent dignity because God made you. That's just a fact. And if they're taking those rights away piecemeal and doing so in the name of public safety, even as they make the public sphere much more dangerous, which they have, in case you haven't noticed, Canada has a lot more violent crime now than it did 20 years ago. Have you noticed? Of course you have. You live here. And they're telling you you can't defend yourself against that crime. We're going to disarm you. You can't protect your life or your family. And you're like, oh yeah, it's for the public safety. It's just not a big deal. These are weapons. What are other weapons of self-defense, which you need and deserve as a free person, not a slave? And then they're telling you can't complain about it. And then they're subsidizing the media to the point where all of your big media outlets, which are disgusting, are state media because they're taking state cash. Do you watch CBC? I do, occasionally. I can turn in any hour of the day and I will learn that I'm racist for driving an SUV and not being trans. That's the whole schedule of CBC program. Yeah. So if they're limiting your freedom to say what you think, which is freedom of conscience, the most basic of all freedom, your freedom to defend yourself and your family against bodily harm, which has got to be a twin to the first one. If they're taking away your voting power by changing the population of your country, which they are doing, and no one wants to talk about that, Canada has the highest immigration rate in the world per capita. And shut up, racist! That's not racist. I don't care if you're coming from New Zealand. I don't care if you're taking the population of Stockholm and moving them to Canada. If you change the population of the country, you change the country. And you dilute the voting power of the people who are vested in that country, the people who were born there, who have lived there long term, who understand the history, the culture of the country, who are bought in. And all of a sudden, their vote means much less. It's math.
Pretty sure you guys have heard me say that one before. Because that's all it is. Let's keep listening.
Somebody explain that to me. Show it.
This is a female, just in case there's any confusion out there. Now let's laugh.
Thing is trans.
Why don't you think so?
Because they're just people pretending to be something they're not. What is this gender identity? What is that? Somebody explain that to me. Show it to me on the body. It's not a real thing. It's an idea, right? I am not an idea in a man's head. My reality is real. My body is real. The things that I live with, the things that I go through are unique to me and all the women here. You know, a man will never experience that because a man feels like a girl that he is a girl. It's ludicrous. So I don't use the word. I say men pretending to be or women pretending to be because that's all it is. You're pretending to be something that you're not. No such thing as trans.
Well, that sounds familiar. A lot of pretenders out here, and I call that out damn near every day because that's what's true. And if we continue to, and here's the thing, guys, if we allow people to pretend in one area, we're allowing them to pretend in all areas. And this is why it's important that you're careful about who you accept crypto information from, all your information from, period. Because if you don't know, the other person does, or at least is pretending to do, you can't verify whether their claims are true or false. And breaking news, and it's worth me, and this is breaking right now. Vince McMahon is accused of sex trafficking by a WWE staffer he paid to keep quiet. Now, while things look good from a specific perspective, I caution you guys to understand once again that whether conservative or liberal, neither extreme is good. And I'm worried that all this positive looking shit is actually negative. Because the last thing we need is to go from a liberal extreme where they want you to be a guy and a girl in the same body to a conservative extreme where we'll all basically be animals if we're not who the conservative leaders are. So be very careful of what you think makes sense and what you think is proper, because nobody should be able to dictate anything to anyone. And this is the problem. Nobody fails to recognize that, or everybody fails to recognize that.
Dear Hollywood, we see what you're doing, using stories on the big screen to push a progressive agenda on children. Lightyear, Barbie, Snow White. We are done. You've made it clear that no brand is safe. You've left us no options to go out and build our own. This is how we turn the tide in our culture. Uproot the evil and plant seeds of truth, goodness, and beauty. Push back the force of darkness so that we can build a better world for our children. No more whining and complaining about the culture. We need to start winning and creating a culture by doing. See evil, call it out, offer good, and invite others to join us. That's exactly what I'm doing with Brave Books. Brave produces more than just books that teach good morals and values with awesome authors like my friend Kirk Cameron. They've created an entire universe for your kids' imagination to get lost in. Good guys and bad guys, heroes and villains, stories that leave you on the edge of your seat, wondering what is going to happen next. Their Freedom Island Book Club sends you a new book each month that will arm your children with the truth so that they will grow up to become men and women who love God and love this country. This can be a game changer for families like yours, and hundreds of thousands of families have already trusted Brave Books as a tool to develop their children's morality and entertain them with awesome stories and activities. Secure the hearts and minds of your children through Brave's Freedom Island Book Club today, and get my book for free when you join.
Now, the reason I played that is not because I'm a partner and I get paid to show that, but because that's essentially what has to happen. We live in a world where everything that you know and love is tainted. Period. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's from before 2019, it's tainted. The only way to untaint the future It's not by using the same brands and service providers and doing everything the same. Nah, everything has to change because evil doesn't stop. It doesn't just become good. Don't be a fool. Don't be a fool. Now, this came out yesterday, and this is supposedly Trump's plan to dismantle the deep state. I'm not trying to read all that, so let's
My
just listen
plan
in.
to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all, and corruption it is. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies, which they're doing now at a level that nobody can believe even possible. Third, we will totally reform FISA courts, which are so corrupt that the judges seemingly do not care when they are lied to in warrant applications. So many judges have seen so many applications that they know were wrong, or at least they must have known. They do nothing about it. They're lied to. Fourth, to expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing our country apart, we will establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption. And there are plenty of them. Fifth, we will launch a major crackdown on government leakers who collude with the fake news to deliberately weave false narratives and to subvert our government and our democracy. When possible, we will press criminal charges. Sixth, we will make every inspector general's office independent and physically separated from the departments they oversee so they do not become the protectors of the deep state. Seventh, I will ask Congress to establish an independent auditing system to continually monitor our intelligence agencies to ensure they are not spying on our citizens or running disinformation campaigns against the American people, or that they are not spying on someone's campaign like they spied on my campaign. Eighth, we will continue the effort launched by the Trump administration to move parts of the sprawling federal bureaucracy to new locations outside the Washington swamp. Just as I moved the Bureau of Land Management to Colorado, as many as 100,000 government positions could be moved out, and I mean immediately, of Washington to places filled with patriots who love America, and they really do love America. Ninth, I will work to ban federal bureaucrats from taking jobs at the companies they deal with and that they regulate. So they deal with these companies and they regulate these companies, and then they want to take jobs from these companies. Doesn't work that way. Such a public display cannot go on, and it's taking place all the time, like with Big Pharma. Finally, I will push a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. This is how I will shatter the deep state and restore government that is controlled by the people and for the people. Thank you very much.
Woo. So yeah, we all thought that was AI for a little bit because dude was not blinking at all. Now, I just want to go over a couple points he made, which are complete bullshit, and are never gonna happen. Um, executive orders, as we've come to find out, don't really mean shit. Um, that's not gonna happen either, right? I mean, if all people have to do is change their tune, then that's never gonna happen. These courts shouldn't even exist, and that's a conversation for a whole nother time. This is obviously bullshit because the problem is not going to be solved with a declassifying or whatever. And if he even makes it to that point, right? Because I don't see these people slowing down. Maybe he doesn't realize there's no more media. 'Cause number 5 is kind of irrelevant. I mean, yeah, I think that's it. I think the rest of them are like, whatever. Congress, yeah. Imagine asking Congress to do anything and them doing it, especially when you just threaten them to end it. Yeah, don't think so. It's a nice try, though. All right, this one, I can't remember what it's about, but let's watch it.
So yesterday I accidentally discovered that the CIA was heavily involved in producing the vaccines. What a rabbit hole. This one's going to go deep, but I'm going to try to speed run it as fast and concisely as possible. I was a little confused when this video got completely throttled on such a big account compared to like hundreds of thousands of views, because I had no idea what I had just stumbled across. On X, we were doing work, and Homegirl put me on a thread that is pinned to the top of her profile, and I started double checking all of her work, and it just went from there. So speedrun. Yesterday, Pfizer had a really bad day after a really bad year. Looking into Pfizer's board of directors, Scott Gottlieb led me to this company called Resilience. Also note Illumina, just for a second. And looking into Resilience, oh boy, I was just wondering why the CEO of In-Q-Tel, the CIA's investment asset management group, was on the board of this weird biotechnology company. What I didn't realize is that Resilience partnered with Moderna in 2021. And I made a joke that Whitney Webb probably would already have the scoop on this. And lo and behold, Whitney Webb reported in 2022 on this exact company. And she has done her own dig into the board of directors, and we're going to put it all together right now. But first, let's revisit what Destiny put together in her thread. She pointed out that when you go to usaspending.gov and you look up contracts that Resilience Government Services has had with the government, they're getting funded by our government to the tune of $142 million all the way back in 2013, and $66 million in 2020? But they're also known by 7 other names: Nanosphere, Nanotherapeutics, Ology. But I noticed that this address that they give on this website is not the same as on Resilience's own website. So I double checked us and made sure that Resilient Government Services that's getting these awards is this website, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Yeah, we're on the same page. When you look up Resilience on Crunchbase, they're being funded by the U.S. International Development Finance Corp, the Department of Defense, Google, Lux Capital. They've apparently raised $2.5 billion. If you look up Nanosphere on Crunchbase, they've been funded by Allen and Company and Bain Capital. But now let's dig into the team at Resilience, starting with Robert Nelson, better known as Bob. Whitney Webb put me on to this article where Bob Nelson is real tight with Luciana Borio. Apparently, it was actually talking to Borio on the phone about her work running the pandemic preparedness at NSC that led to his idea of starting Resilience. And Scott Gottlieb, the guy on Pfizer's board that started this whole investigation, he's also homies with Borio. He tweeted about how great she is. Turns out she is also vice president at In-Q-Tel. Weird. Previously served on the National Security Council, acting chief scientist at the FDA. She's an infectious disease physician who, has ties with Bill and Melinda, the Council on Foreign Relations. And for some reason, Goldman Sachs wants a consultant that is an infectious disease physician. Because, banking and infectious disease physicians are like tight. Then we have Drew Owetting, who is the co-founder of 8VC Capital Partners, which is private equity, co-founded with Joe Lonsdale of the PayPal Mafia. Joe Lonsdale worked with PayPal while he attended Stanford, but more importantly, Joe co-founded Palantir. This Palantir, The one that's pretty much a CIA company designed to network all of our data and give it to these people and these people. So what is that, like 3-4 connections to the intelligence community now? But wait, because we don't want to skip old Bob, who is also on the board of directors, who is an ex-Navy SEAL who served in Vietnam, and according to one of his SEAL team members, Klon, Klon, and according to one of his SEAL team members, Klon, the team rounded up the women and children from the shelters and decided to kill them and get out of there for fear that they would alert enemy soldiers. Obviously, he made that up, though. Kerry responded by saying, "That's not my memory of it," and accused Klon of being jealous of him. So what has he been up to since his time in Vietnam? Well, he was on the 9/11 Commission, and he was a big part of Allen and Company, specifically a managing director at Allen and Company, according to Tenet Health, where he's on the board. Worth noting that the former director of the CIA is also associated with Allen and Company. They are a low-profile banking boutique that has no website. They work on high-profile deals with companies like Google, Twitter, Facebook, Activision, eBay, Verizon, Time Warner. They host the Sun Valley Conference, which is a billionaire retreat every year, where these people go. I'll give you a real screenshot so you can read them if you want to pause, because there's a lot of names on there. So what have we learned so far? We've learned that during Operation Warp Speed, Moderna partnered with this brand new company that was hastily thrown together by all these dudes with ties to intelligence and Pfizer and big banking. Oh yeah, and the ex-CEO of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they produced all the genetic material for Moderna's vaccines. Thank goodness it intends to reinvent biomanufacturing and democratize access to medicines, namely gene therapies, experimental vaccines, and other medicines of tomorrow. I mean, if you think about it, this makes a lot of sense, and this is exactly what the CIA is supposed to be doing. They're protecting us from bioweapons and from viruses and dangerous things. That this is just the world in 2023. And thank goodness we have all these rich people and their friends to do such a selfless act of service to protect us from dangerous things. I mean, I just hope that they can manufacture the next vaccine to the next big pandemic before that pandemic hits. I'm sure they already have it all figured out. So normal people like you and me, we have nothing to worry about. Is exactly what the CIA is supposed to be doing. They're protecting us from bioweapons and from viruses and dangerous things. That this is just the world in 2023. And thank goodness we have all these rich people and their friends to do such a selfless act of service to protect us from dangerous things. I mean, I just hope that they can manufacture the next vaccine to the next big pandemic before that pandemic hits. I'm sure they already have it all figured out. So normal people like you and me, we have nothing to worry about. Thank goodness the experts have it under control. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Remember I told you Illumina would come back up? Well, Francis Arnold is on that board along with Scott Gottlieb. You know, Francis Arnold and Scott Gottlieb. Sort of like Susan Desmond Hellman and Scott Gottlieb, like Susan Desmond Hellman and Scott Gottlieb. It seems like they all know each other. Weird. So yesterday I accidentally discovered that the CIA.
Funny how that happens, isn't it? And the thing about it is, guys, is that that's not the only place where that happens. You know, anywhere you look, you will make the same types of connections. Assuming you look.
Common form of B12 in the world.
Oh yeah, for all of those of you that love taking vitamins, pay attention.
Is entirely synthetic. We make it from hydrogen cyanide. It's called cyanocobalamin. It's a cyanide-based B12. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're allowed to make vitamins out of hydrogen cyanide in this country, but we are. Flintstone vitamins have cyanocobalamin. So do Airborne. So do Celsius energy drinks. Emergency has cyanocobalamin, cyanide-based B12. So when you put this form of B12 into the body, it drops off the cobalt metal, the cobalamin, right, which is B12 is a metal, a light metal. It drops off the metal into the cell, and then you're left with a floating cyanide molecule. Now, the body doesn't recognize that. So in order for cyanide to leave the system, it binds to oxygen and other light metals and takes them out of the system. It's a thief. The common form of B12 in the world is...
This is why we have to be educated, folks. Taking the short route is just never a solution. More stuff about Lahaina that people have forgotten. Let's revisit.
Not surprised. The incident seems stunning to monitor the media's lack of interest in the whole Maui story. I've been in this business for 30 years. I'm stunned, but I'm not surprised. The incident seems to be the story here, right? But the true story, the media knows it is not allowed to tell. Is it a coincidence that the Maui police chief is the same man who was in charge in Las Vegas during that massacre that killed 58 people? Is it a coincidence that the Maui property, owned by million and billionaires, it wasn't touched by the flames while homes of the locals all burned?
What she fails to also mention is how the media hasn't even once interviewed a grieving parent. Not a single parent looking for their children. Not a single interview with a child. Not a single interview with the schools.
Was it a coincidence that the largest system of outdoor emergency sirens in the world never made a sound as the fire devoured Lahaina? Was it a coincidence that at the same time, very same time, all the water was turned off? Was it a coincidence that police were ordered to block off streets and to funnel all the cars trying to escape? Think about this coincidence. That governor also signed an emergency proclamation on July 17th, 3 weeks before the fire, about housing of all things. Is it a coincidence that the government put up a black fence around Lahaina, or that the FAA grounded all drones from flying over the affected areas? Is it a coincidence that since at least 2011 there have been plans to make Maui the first smart city run by 100% renewable energy? And that it must be a coincidence then that the locals whose homes did not burn are now being evicted from their property. And of course, a total coincidence that all the fact checkers who are checking these facts, who say everything I just told you is just a coincidence, are also owned and run by BlackRock.
Yeah, that actually happened. Let's not forget it.
Whole idea of we in the UK arrested people for going on solo walks in the mountains. That is utterly absurd. That devalues the whole idea of social distancing that anyone can see. This is nonsense. But it was done.
There you have it. Spoken like a true gentleman. See what this is about.
432. Fucking genius. I'll check this human residence, please.
That's not the first video I see of people doing that down there at that wall where those gaps are. Interesting stuff. Now this is everybody's homie, Let's Go Brandon back in 07. Now, again, please look at this dude's face and understand that is not the same guy. Let's listen in.
Would you allow these cities to ignore the federal law regarding the reporting of illegal immigrants and, in fact, provide sanctuary to these immigrants?
The reason the cities ignore the federal law is the fact that there is no funding at the federal level to provide for the kind of enforcement at the federal level you need. Pick up the New York Times today. There's a city not far across the river from my state that imposed the similar sanctions. And what they found out is, as a consequence of that, their city went in the dumps, in the dumpster. Stores started closing. Everything started to happen. And they changed the policy. Part of the problem is you have to have a federal government that can enforce laws. This administration has been fundamentally derelict in not funding any of the requirements that are needed even to enforce the existing
So,
law.
Senator Biden, yes or no, would you allow the cities to ignore the federal law?
No.
Okay.
We know what the real answer is there nowadays, don't we? Now, you guys saw that dude's face.
You about Hunter Biden's laptop. How are you going to get them to see that you are fighting for them when they're so dead set against you?
There's nothing to any of that. Nothing to any of that. It's all a smear. Every major outfit, every serious investigator has pointed out that this is a smear. This is classic Trump. We have 4 days left, and all of a sudden there's a laptop. And you may recall, there's also talk about 4 months before there was a similar thing that somebody had, allegedly. There's overwhelming evidence from the intelligence community that the Russians are engaged. I mean, look, this is, my son's an honorable man.
What about the Americans who really...
Man, did he eat his words on that one. Woo! Let's see if there's any other images. There you go. There's another image showing that that's not the same guy. I mean, it's just not the same guy. You just can't make me believe it.
4 foods that turn toxic when you refrigerate it. Number 1 is garlic. Never buy peeled garlic and refrigerate it because it starts catching mold very quickly. And garlic mold has actually been linked with cancer. Have you seen what a terrible odor it has? Always buy fresh garlic with a peel. Unpeel it only when you're about to cook it and keep it outside the refrigerator always. Number 2 is onions. Now, onion is a crop that is resistant to low temperatures. When you refrigerate it, the starch starts converting into sugar and starts catching mold. Lots of people do this mistake of cutting half an onion, cooking it, and keeping the other half in the fridge. Never do that. It starts collecting all the unhealthy bacteria in the environment and catches mold. In fact, when someone is ill at home, we take a slice of onion and keep it in the corner of the room to collect all the unhealthy bacteria in the environment. Number 3 is ginger. It starts catching mold very quickly when you refrigerate it, and that has been linked with kidney and liver failures. Do not refrigerate it. Number 4 is rice. Lots of people have started keeping cooked rice in the refrigerator because of the resistance to starch, and they think it is helping the cholesterol and blood sugar levels. But in fact, rice is one of the ingredients that catches mold the fastest. If you're going to refrigerate it, not more than 24 hours. Read the caption for complete details. Here's to healthy living and a healthy you.
This is the last one, I think. No, that's not the last one. But it's the last video.
Whose rocks are they? They're personal paperwork done, and I need to get out of here. It doesn't work like that. It takes days. I want to talk to the manager. Okay, 1 second. Hi, how can I help you? What the fuck is really wrong? I just my thing. It was just you. You came in here acting like you own the place. I want to rent a yacht. Does it look like you have yachts? I see them all around there. We don't have any yachts for rent. I see them. Whose rocks are they? They're personal yachts. I guess you don't want to make no money here at this restaurant. I guess we don't. What? What the hell are you doing? You cannot record me. That is against my HIPAA law. Ma'am. Paperwork.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry, but that lady just woke up on the wrong side of bed that day, and she was just ready for it, yo. She was just ready for it. And yo, we've been watching a lot of clips lately where, don't do your own research. What's the latest? Top Harvard cancer researchers accused of scientific fraud. 37 studies affected. Researchers accused of manipulating data images with copy and paste. Oh, I know what this is. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is just going to hit the mainstream now, but this is actually old news. Yeah, I'm going to tell you guys what. Please watch these videos multiple times, share them with whoever you got to share them with. Help people understand there's a bigger world out there than what we're being shown on TV and in the movies. And yeah, we all know it's definitely more than 37. But appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. Thank you guys for coming on out. I hope you guys are enjoying these streams. Let me know in the comments what you like the most, what you dislike. Maybe I could tweak it, make it better, make it worse, whatever. Because these are the important streams. The crypto stuff, you guys already know that stuff. You can already find that stuff. These streams are going to highlight the importance of why we need to understand all the important crypto stuff. Because without understanding all that important crypto stuff, and then understanding why we need to understand all that important crypto stuff, we're left behind, man. We're all left behind. That's how I got left behind with Bitcoin and Ethereum, because I didn't understand the bigger picture. And now they're multiple thousands of dollars, right? So you got to find that thing that's sticky and makes sense, right? Because that's what it's about. Because not every coin is thousands of dollars. So let's not play ourselves acting like that's the case. Peace out, y'all. Right? The reality is that I want to be rich as fuck. There's only one way to be rich as fuck. That's by sitting on your ass the longest. Yep. That's it. Yep. That's the secret. The God well told you. Richard done told you. I done told you. Kareem done told you. Maddie done told you. Everybody done told you. Everybody done told you. Shit, motherfuckers still acting like they don't know. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
100% safe. There's plenty of games left.
Valiant done told you. Yo, everybody said it. I mean, hey, you know what it is, man? Everybody done told you. Y'all deep, everybody.